What's up? Welcome back to Nostalgia. Dave here with another pod. What's going on in pop culture right now? Really loaded podcast this week. A lot of great stuff to get into here. I'm going to react to the 2023 Emmy nominations. Of course, got to talk about Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, the banger that it is. Of course, the SAG acting strike. Got to get into that. And also some other reviews, Full Circle, new miniseries on HBO Max, the return of What We Do in the Shadows for Season 5, new album from Disclosure, Alchemy, new album from J Hus, Beautiful and Brutal Yard, been 3 years, long wait, very excited, and a new album from NCT Dream, ISTJ. So a lot of stuff to get into here. Make sure you subscribe, youtube.com/nostalgiapod, linktree.com/nostalgiapod. Get the pod any way you can. Just make sure you get it. Hit the link below to do just that. Also hit the link below for the best of 2023 Spotify playlist for my favorite songs of the year, updated weekly. And let's get into it. What's up? Welcome back to Nostalgia. Dave here, reacting to the actors on strike. Yes, the Screen Actors Guild, SAG-AFTRA, is on strike in Hollywood, joining the Writers Guild of America, also on strike. Both the actors and the writers are on strike. The writers have been on strike since May. We talked about that when that happened. The actors just going on strike this weekend in mid-July after a 98% strike authorization. And this is very significant, obviously. This is the first time both the writers and the actors have been on strike at the same time since 1960, back when Ronald Reagan was the head of SAG. And it's the first acting strike in general in 43 years. Really significant. It's coming at a obviously very important time for this sort of thing. It's a major inflection point, I think, for the entertainment business, the film industry, etc. And we'll get into all of that. Right off the bat, though, it's really hard not to look at the Directors Guild, which did cut a deal 2 weeks ago, and just give them a massive L, because the directors couldn't wait 2 weeks. They had nothing to lose, because guess what? The directors can't do any working without any actors or writers, now can they? They thought they could do work without writers with completed scripts, and perhaps that's true in some sense, but that's all gone now with the actors. Everything's being shut down. We already have word of big productions, movies slated for 2024, such as Deadpool 3, Venom 3, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 2, Gladiator 2, the Formula 1 movie with Brad Pitt. All these productions are stopped. And there's a lot of, I think, implications for the industry that we'll get to. But of course, I think it's very important that the strike is happening when it is, just because the things that the labor and management are in clear disagreement on are very important. These are not things that should be just rushed to the side or punted down the road because the film industry is still recovering post-COVID and post the about face that the industry and Wall Street has taken when it comes to the economics of the streaming industry and the streaming model. Despite all that, people need to make a living that work in the business, and that includes the people that aren't at the very top, right? And I think some people who might not think about it for too long might be like, oh, the actors are going on strike. The actors are all rich and famous. What does it matter to them? We have to remember, the Screen Actors Guild has 160,000 people in it. That's actually 15 times larger than the Writers Guild, by the way. 160,000 people. Most of these are middle class, working class actors. We're not talking about the stars. Obviously, the stars will be fine with their millions and their platforms. But thankfully, with the actors now on strike, you have these famous people with an audience, with a platform that can help really spread the cause and perhaps put more pressure on, the AMPTA. Put more pressure on, AMPTP, the theater, the studio, union management group, basically put pressure on them to try and get some momentum going, But much like when we talked about the writer's strike going down in the beginning of May, earlier this year with the Golden Globes, you had The Bear season 1 winning for writing, and one of the guys who won for writing, won a Golden Globe, won recognition for doing his job well. Earlier that day, he had posted that he was going to the Golden Globes with an overdrafted bank account. Something is broken here. And it's clearly something is broken even when you're doing your job well. Do I think we'll live in a world down the line where there's 160,000 working actors? No, probably not. It goes the same for writers. I think the overall number of jobs will go down. But for the people that are doing the job, things just need to improve. Part of that is just general minimum rate increases. I think they'll eventually agree to that. The labor won't get as much as they want as a increase, but they'll get more than what's currently being offered. I think that's an easy one that eventually will be worked out with time, like it always is. I think the big thing, though, the writers this is a big sticking point with the writers. It's a big sticking point with the actors. Residuals as a part of the business, as a part of making money, just has to be changed, has to be kind of updated for 2023 and beyond. And with streaming, there's kind of like a blanket residual that happens when your show is on the air and remaining on a streaming service, but there is no success-based residual the way there used to be when stuff was in syndication and on cable and in rotation like that. That doesn't exist, and that's a major sticking point. Also, I think one of the biggest headlines of all would be regarding artificial intelligence. Obviously, the writers are very against AI being used to rip off their existing work and also replace their future work. That seems clear. It's a fair stance to take, right? But actors also, this kind of came up with background actors getting paid for a day of work, and then having their background likeness like scanned and used by the studio in the future without actually being paid for those future use. I don't see why anyone would willingly sign up for having their future work not being available to them. Like, it doesn't make any sense why the studios think that's something people would take. Because what is their point of view, the studios? Oh, well, you can only do one day of work with background and scan it in. That means you can do more jobs, but you wouldn't get more jobs. The studios obviously would just eventually get enough background acting scanned in with AI and just keep recycling the same background actors, and we'd eventually probably notice it one day, right? And you would just kind of kill that as a job entirely, you would think. So I'm not sure when that as like a point of contention would come down, but that's something that needs to be resolved. And in general, guardrails on AI in the industry is a big talking point. And I think it's great that it's happening now. It would have had to happen eventually. And you're seeing stuff like lawsuits where I think Sarah Silverman was in one where like, hey, like, you're using my work to train your program. And it's like there's a big plagiarism thing going on right now at AI because we don't have any rules. It's all so new, so much more to come on that, both outside of the context of the strike. But we also have, in the next year, the IATSE union, the Teamsters union, their contracts are up. So all the crew on productions will be, I think, bring similar complaints to the table, just general rate increases, but also other more existential things. So, I think this is something that has to get resolved because you can't have labor being left behind just because your industry is not as successful and humming as it has in the past. And it's just incredibly poor optics for Bob Iger, the CEO of Disney, to sign on for an additional 2 years and also give himself a $5 million raise in the process on top of his already like $20 million plus, salary that he already has. And yeah, was that Bob Iger's decision? Was it the board's decision? I don't care. It doesn't make a difference because these companies are still turning over tons of revenue. And I think overall, like I said, like in terms of like the studio's, thoughts about the business realities of the time, I think there'll just be less jobs and less work overall in the future. But you need to take care of the people that will be fortunate enough to remain doing the jobs. And I think that's just kind of where we're at. And, like I said, we have all these major productions shut down. There's talk of independent films getting waivers to continue production, obviously due to their small scale and, lack of financing as it is. They're not acquired for distribution. The Writers Guild didn't do such a thing, and I would advise that the SAG not do that, because you're just going to actually hurt the strike overall, and the studios would be incentivized to just fund and acquire independent films at the very beginning of it, and they would just kind of prolong the pressure that you would be putting on the studios with the lack of completed product to then sell, at the box office, on your streaming service, etc. So kind of hoping that doesn't happen. Obviously, actors no longer are going to be promoting their films. You had the Oppenheimer UK red carpet moved up an hour so that the cast could participate briefly before then leaving. They canceled the red carpet for the New York premiere of Oppenheimer. No stars will be at the Venice and Toronto film festivals, coming up soon, which definitely hurts the buzz generation that movies that go to film festivals kind of need to get their path toward distribution and hopeful profitability going. So that's not great. Of course, already, with the writers strike, you have late night shows have all been shuttered, obviously. So that's another promotion outlet that's long been gone for a few months now when it comes to selling movies. The Emmys almost assuredly will be delayed out of September, perhaps into November or even January. No actors will go to San Diego Comic-Con. It's coming up very soon, which I guess was kind of forecast for the sake that most big studios are not going to Comic-Con. I guess they kind of saw the writing on the wall there. But nonetheless, there's just not a lot that can happen right now. The industry is basically ground to a halt, and there's productions over in the UK, and of course international, and thus there'll be tons of international movies still at the film festivals, because they obviously operate under different rules with different unions and whatnot, if they even have unions, depending on where the movie's made. So the film festivals won't be completely bone dry, thankfully, but yeah, I think we're in it for the long haul here, at least through the summer. Sometime in the fall, I think, is when people think this could potentially be resolved, but it's not going to be soon. And again, major L for the directors, because you can't do shit now anyway. Really stupid of them to kind of scab over in the way they did. And I guess, looking ahead, it'll be very interesting to see what happens in the 2024 movie space, where, I believe Captain America Brave New World, which is dated for July, that's actually completed filming. No other Marvel Cinematic Universe movie for next year and beyond has completed filming. That would be an issue for sure. Dead Reckoning, there's just a lot of, the thought of a barren movie calendar a few years post-COVID, it's a disaster for the industry, but I think that's the kind of pressure you have to put on management to make lasting change when it comes when it's the point of view of labor. So we'll be paying attention and rooting for a swift resolution, but it's going to be a while. But let me know, how are you feeling about the SAG strike in the wake of the Writers Guild strike? How long do you think it'll take before this gets resolved? Are you worried about the future? And for more updates on the labor disputes of Hollywood, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. What's up? Welcome back to Nostalgia. Dave here with a review of NCT Dream's third album, ITSJ. This is NCT Dream's first release since their Candy EP from last December, which I liked quite a bit. And yeah, NCT Dream, of course, one of the subunits of SM Entertainment's massive K-pop group NCT. People know. And I'll be honest, I often struggle to discern one NCT subunit from the last. There's just so many members, so many releases regularly from this wide-ranging group. I've always found it a bit inaccessible. That being said, I think NCT 127 and NCT Dream have been the most engaging to me in terms of being able to grasp how the groups work. I guess Wavy as well, but they don't make as much music. But yeah, NCT Dream, I liked Candy a lot. I think they're just kind of a fun, playful group, have that more, I guess, youthful energy. That was at least the initial pitch. Frontline, headlined by Mark Lee, one of the signature members of NCT. And yeah, I think probably no one would hold up NCT Dream as like the highlight of NCT. I think NCT 127 clearly has that belt, but NCT Dream I still think has made some pretty fun songs over the years, and it's been pretty consistent at that. And here with the third album, ISTJ, I think there's some fun stuff here. Right off the bat, you have the title track and ISTJ. And when like that beat drops, I think it's really fun, very catchy vocal harmony, the like dangerous vocal line from Jano and Haeshan. I think that's like really engaging. I love the singing on that. But the rap I think is just okay on that song. Track 2 though, you have the lead single Broken Melodies, which has been a bit of a hit so far for the group. Very sticky hook, also very aptly named, for the melody of it all. Big lead single, and I think kind of like melancholic, kind of like fitting the like love struck like youthful vibe that like this group goes for. I think that's like very much like in line with like what this group is trying to do in terms of songs. Track 3 you have Yogurt Shake, which I thought had really catchy verses. I thought this was really fun, but I thought the chorus was really weak, kind of like killed the song for me. Track 4, I think this is my favorite song on the record, Skateboard. I mean, the opening verse right into like the pre-chorus, the rap is just very, very hard. My only issue with it is the chorus is quite corny. What's it? The on my skateboard, gotta get it rolling. Like reminds me a lot of the hook on Two Baddies from NCT 127 last year. Just like I feel like NCT and their writers at SM like they say some corny shit from time to time. It kind of just comes with the territory. You gotta I think just be okay with it. I don't know. But like I said, I think the rapping is like great on the rest of the song. So I think it's probably the best rapping on the whole album. So I'll forgive the cheesy hook. Right after that, you have Blue Wave, which kind of like the production I think stands out. Like it's probably like the most like unique beat on the whole record. More or less, it's pretty samey, pretty similar across the runtime. A lot of up tempo, consistent drum production. You kind of understand what you're getting from NCT at this point. But Blue Wave, like there's like that whistle kind of persistent as once it starts dropping in, and kind of gives you that island like vibe, which kind of fits the lyrics of the song. So that one kind of like jumped out to me as something a little bit different. Poison, I really like the harmony on the hook. I think the second rap verse is really hard. SOS I think goes really hard as well. Pretzel, I think it's funny to like use pretzel as like a word to describe the shape of a heart. I salute the creativity there. And then it kind of like ends kind of softly for me, but the last song, like we just met, is just a straight up like acoustic ballad, which I guess comes a little bit out of nowhere to me. But yeah, I think overall, I think the highs of Candy last year, the EP, I think that's a little bit higher to me in terms of my estimation. And I liked Hot Sauce from a few years ago. But yeah, I think this is still a solid release. I just don't really know what I like want from NCT in any of the versions of NCT as a group. I just find it so unwieldy personally. Like I know they just gave us the latest subunit NCT Dojejung, which is just 3 members. I think it's kind of a great idea, but like I feel like the NCT branding almost like holds that kind of music back, like from a creative standpoint. I don't know. Lucas left NCT for many reasons, controversial at that, but like I wouldn't blame idols from trying to get out if they can. And like there's a lot of buzz about like the contracts of this group and whether they're expiring or not. Obviously SM has been under a lot of fire lately with the ethical gray areas of their contracts, look no farther than everything that happened with EXO in the last few months. So I wonder like how long NCT is gonna go, or if it's gonna be like a cycling out type thing. Like we just got the Taeyong solo album. That was the first solo album from an NCT member. You got a few of these guys in Super M. I don't know. I just don't really know what like the ceiling is with a group of this just unwieldy mass. I don't know. In a sense, it's very unique for music to like have a project like this, but it's also so obviously label driven that it's hard for me to get too invested in the creativity. So yeah, like I appreciate NCT when they do things that are pretty fun, and I think in general they always released pretty solid stuff, but something about it just keeps me a little bit at arm's length. How are you feeling about NCT Dream's third album, ISTJ? How are you feeling about NCT in general? What do you want to see next from the group? And we know we'll get it in many ways, but how are you feeling about it? What do you want to see next? And for more music reviews, more K-pop reviews, subscribe. And I'll see you next time. What's up? Welcome back to Nostalgia. Dave here with a review of J Hus's third album, Beautiful and Brutal Yard. Yes, J Hus is finally back. It's been 3 years since his last album, Big Conspiracy, came out in 2020, pre-pandemic at that. And obviously, I think anyone who's been in the know about J Hus has been a big fan of his for a few years at this point. You know, I think one of the more unique and singular artists in the British hip-hop scene. I've certainly been a fan for some time. I think what's always stood out about J Hus is really kind of like the whole story about him, but the music first and foremost has been kind of unique. He's largely credited with kind of developing a new subgenre with Afro swing, kind of a Afro beats meets grime meets dancehall type approach to British hip hop. You know it when you hear it type thing. And, on top of that, kind of having this steady come up, releasing a really acclaimed debut album, Common Sense, back in 2017, a record I really love. And then going from that to kind of quickly finding himself behind bars. And when we found out that he was no longer in jail, was because none other than Drizzy Drake himself brought him out in 2019 at his show at the O2 Arena in England. And that, I think, it was like a triumphant, kind of iconic moment in recent UK hip hop history. And obviously it's an awesome shout out or a cosign from Drake, but even more so just it's a really I think really nice and warm gesture from someone as big as Drake, obviously. And Big Conspiracy comes out a few months after that, and then J Hus kind of goes away. At this point he's a bit of a cult figure in the sense that he hasn't toured since 2017. He hasn't released music in almost 3.5 years beyond a feature here and there. And I mean, just think about how much time that's been. Central C's entire career has happened in between J Hus albums. And we know how big Central C is and how hot he is right now. Check out my review about his project he just dropped with Dave, which is hot as hell and great. But yeah, J Hus is finally back. The last album got a Brit Award nomination for Album of the Year in 2021. People care about J Hus, and now we got him back. And I hope we don't have to wait 3 more years again, because he's just a really engaging artist. The genre blend still really stands out. And personally, I think this is the kind of music Stormzy thought he was making on his last album last year, if we're going to keep it in the UK. I thought Stormzy lost his way a little bit on that last record in terms of the sound. But J Hus is just so confident, kind of moving within this lane, and this is a lane that kind of moves within itself as well, right? And in a sense, this third album, Beautiful and Brutal Yard, it's long, 19 songs, 63 minutes. We could have cut some of this down for sure, but I think that breadth also gives you a lot of room to show you the different sides of J Hus, which has kind of been apparent ever since that first album, especially. But yeah, I definitely like this a lot. There's a lot to revisit on this album, and more than anything, I'm just happy J Hus is back. I think we should really start with the first single, Who Told You, featuring Drake. That's a song where obviously Drake giving J Hus a feature, great gesture, love it. Drake loves to be that chameleon, right? We know this. This is kind of a dancehall moving song. And I think in general, there's a lot of rhythms on this album from J Hus. I don't love the song with Drake personally. It's already taking off as any song with Drake would do, but I'm not the biggest fan of it. I think it sounds fine and all, and Drake can do a pretty good job matching this kind of vibe, but it doesn't completely grab me. But it seems to be grabbing a lot of people. I really like track 2, Massacre. I think that one's just really hard. I think just kind of going through this track list here, one of the other singles, It's Crazy. Man, the beat on that. Super high tempo. I think that one goes really hard. I love the last song, Playing Chess. I love Come Gully Bun featuring Boss Belly. Lyrically, that's really interesting to kind of get like the Gambian, like immigrant experience and immigrant like point of view on like English life thrown in there, kind of similar to how like Dave has recently like brought in like the views of his parents into his music. I don't know. I thought that was like a nice like specific like type of message to get across in his song. Um, Obviously we know in J Hus's sound there's a bit of dancehall. You have Pop Can on here on Killy. I think that one actually goes really hard, a harder song than I expected. That was really fun. I think Problem Fixer is probably like a quintessential like this is what an Afro swing song sounds like from J Hus. I think that one's great, really hard. My Baby is a great example of another side of J Hus. That's a love jam. And like not only is it a love jam, but like Hus is like can be a bit corny, be a bit cringy, be a bit immature with his lyrics when it comes to that kind of stuff. And I think that's just part of the package. That's part of the appeal. Is that this is a guy who's himself, no matter what, Cream featuring CB also stands out because that is just a straight up UK drill joint. That shit is gloomy and ominous and menacing. You know the beat. And J Hus can go really hard when he wants to. Again, that's what's just so fun about him as an artist, is that he can do all these different kinds of things. Also, we have Nice Body featuring Georgia Smith, a song that's long been teased by Georgia and J Hus and his longtime producer J5. Like, really nice combo. Obviously we know Georgia makes almost every song she gets on better. And we know there's another Georgia album coming out in a few months. Very excited about that. Big fan of her in general. Really nice. I like that one a lot. I think like there's a lot that warrants a second listen on here, to be honest. And because it's all different kinds of music within this larger like Afro swing, grime umbrella, I think he's just a really impressive and just interesting artist. Like he's doing so much. And I think that's what's so cool about UK hip hop these days, is that like everyone who's at the top, they're all like kind of different, doing different stuff, right? Like Stormzy, J Hus, Heady One, Central C, Dave, Skepta. They all sound different from each other. They're all doing different kinds of stuff. It's a very innovative place, very innovative music scene. It's not just UK drill music. There's a lot of stuff going on over there. Artie, shout out him, shout out H. Like there's a lot, AJ Tracy. There's a lot of different sounds over there, and I think a lot of unique voices. And J Hus, I'm just happy he's back, that he's not like fading away due to like his. I think he has an I don't want to say unhealthy, but like uneasy relationship with fame and being a public figure, it seems. So hopefully he's able to manage that, because I think we'd love to hear him stick around, because when he does speak, we like to listen. But let me know, how did you feel about J Hus's third album, Beautiful and Brutal Yard? Let me know what you thought about it. And for more hip-hop reviews, more music reviews, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. What's up? Welcome back to Nostalgia. Dave here with a review of Disclosure's fourth album, Alchemy. A bit of a surprise drop. We had very little notice here, but of course, Guy Lawrence and Howard Lawrence, the UK EDM duo, is back with a new record and their first independent release under their AWOL imprint Apollo Records since leaving Capitol Records, which is of course under the UMG umbrella. The Lawrence brothers seem very happy to be independent again as creatives. They, spoke to just the ability to be creative in their music in the future. They said they're not even going to go tour this new album, Alchemy, and just kind of do what they want to do. And I think that's obviously exciting and welcome whenever any artist feels that way about their work, because obviously a lot of people can't get to that point. Disclosure have been so successful for, about 10 years at this point. I think they've earned the right to do it how they want to do it, and they have a fan base that's big enough to support them in that regard. So you can't help but be happy about that. Of course, this is their first album since their third album, Energy, came out in 2020, and that album got 2 Grammy noms in total. And I think Energy was a bit of a sign of things to come for what Disclosure wants to do in terms of their personal creativity, in terms of what we got here on Alchemy. Alchemy is their first record that doesn't have any big samples and doesn't have any features at all. That's obviously a change from early Disclosure, the most famous and popular Disclosure music on Settle and Caracal, their first two albums. The biggest song of all, people know it, Latch, featuring Sam Smith, a song I absolutely love. I had it in my top 10 songs of the 2010s. That being said, it does sound like Disclosure, and they've said this before, don't want to just keep doing the same thing all the time. And they are looking to branch out and try new things. And here on Alchemy, I think you are kind of getting that in the sense that it's not nearly as flashy or as like made to be a hit type music, but for Disclosure fans, I think there's still a lot of things to like. Overall, I did enjoy Alchemy. It's a bit of a short listen, 11 songs, 37 minutes, but you have some, I think, nice Disclosure hallmarks on this record, which are fun. Starting right off the bat with track 1, Looking for Love, that fast drum tempo, that sticky vocal melody, and just like those really like great chord progressions, that's just like a great classic Disclosure song. The vocals might give you like a slight vibe of Sam Smith on Latch, for example. Like it popped into my head when I heard it anyway. But I think that's just a great song right off the bat from them. I really enjoyed it. Track 2, Simply Won't Do, but more of like a jungle house song with the looping beat, the vocals again standing out a bit, really nice. And then track 3, Higher Than Ever Before, drum and bass banger. Really like that one. A Little Bit I thought was pretty cool as well. And then from there the album kind of changes in terms of its vibe. We Were in Love, the tempo kind of changes, goes down a bit. It feels like Disclosure just kind of mashing that beat pad to really pad out that production there. This part of the album blends together a little bit for me. I think that's always prone to happen with a electronic music release when you have a lot of looping production, like especially if you're kind of being in the same BPM range for a few songs in a row. Like it can sort of loop you into a trance, even if it's not trance music. So I was feeling that a little bit. But I thought the last song, Talk on the Phone, was a really bouncy one. Enjoyed the vocals there. Purify, I think, kind of stands out like probably the biggest track, like in terms of big sound, biggest track on the second half there. But yeah, I mean, overall, I think it's just, it's just another solid Disclosure record. I think with Energy and now Alchemy, I don't think the Disclosure guys have like dropped any like monster smash, and they haven't really been trying to. Like I said, that's okay, But if you like really sit with like an album like Energy, there are really like dope, bit of sequencing. I don't know if like the sequencing really wowed me as much on Alchemy, but like I said, I'm just happy that these guys feel creatively refreshed and are really looking forward to the future of their careers. They're one of the few, I think, EDM acts of the last decade that's really sustained themselves in terms of maintaining a fan base, but maintaining relevancy and maintaining interest. We heard that in a really cool way earlier this year with Skrillex coming back to the fore, for example, after a long career and some time away. And Disclosure, they might not be as like in demand and as hot as someone like a Fred again at this very moment. But again, that's totally okay because they're clearly just ready to settle into this new wide-ranging, taking risks mode of operation. And that's really exciting, especially in the EDM space where, you're kind of two minds, right? Like this type of music, which is not going to be the most popular stuff that gets made, or the more, for the radio, for the playlist stuff that's really safe and samey, and you know who those artists are. So the fact that Disclosure has decidedly chosen the more artistic route, I'm very happy to hear it. So yeah, let me know, how did you feel about Disclosure's fourth album, Alchemy? How are you feeling with this, both compared to Energy, but also compared to the early Disclosure stuff that definitely feels like of a different time with them? And for more EDM reviews, more music reviews, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. What's up? Welcome back to Nostalgia. Dave here with a review of Full Circle, the new miniseries on Max Original from Steven Soderbergh. Yes, Steven Soderbergh once again giving us a TV series. This guy loves to work, doing everything he possibly can to stay busy. Of course, Soderbergh previously made 3 films in a row for HBO Max: Let Them All Talk, No Sudden Move, and Kimmy. And then he made Magic Mike 3, Magic Mike's Last Dance, originally for HBO Max, switched to a theatrical release earlier this year. And then, of course, Soderbergh's like, nope, I'm not done. I'm going to make a TV series again, Full Circle, 6-episode miniseries for Max, previously HBO Max. This is his first TV series since Mosaic, which also came out on HBO proper a few years back. Mosaic was written by Ed Solomon, just like No Sudden Move, and now Full Circle, again, written by Ed Solomon, the third union of Soderbergh and Ed as a writer-director combo. And, on one thing, I would love it if Soderbergh just always made movies. Like, he is one of our great directors, has an amazing CV, but he also works so quickly that makes him so exciting to me. I almost just wish he wouldn't waste his time on TV. We get enough TV already. I'd like one of our great movie directors to keep making movies. That being said, because Soderbergh works as much as he does, I can't be on him too hard. Alfonso Cuarón following up Roma with a TV series that still hasn't come out, by the way, that's a bit more disappointing than Soderbergh, because I know Soderbergh will give us a movie soon. And heck, he gave us one already earlier this year. So again, I can't really get on him too much. But yeah, Full Circle miniseries. We have 2 episodes out of 6 total. And it's got a great cast. Zazie Beetz, Jarrell Jerome, Claire Danes, Timothy Olyphant, Dennis Quaid, Jim Gaffigan. Got some names here. And despite all that, and despite Soderbergh's previous success with TV, despite my reservations, a show like The Knick has long been heralded as the chief of technical filmmaking that can be achieved with TV, especially when it came out, a decade ago. Despite all that, Full Circle did not really grab me. I think a big issue I have with Full Circle is that it's a bit overstuffed. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of unclear plot mechanics, and you're getting exposition that doesn't really help you grasp what's going on in terms of the conflict, in terms of how the various plots and subplots piece together. And despite having great cast, despite looking great, Soderbergh, of course, knows his way behind the camera. Despite all that, I just really wasn't grabbed by the narrative enough. I'm not really sure if I'm going to continue with this one. On its surface, you think it would be kind of interesting, right? You have, I think, the core plot, and again, there are many, but the core plot is a kidnapping gone wrong, where this crime group, led by Guyanese immigrants and other people in New York City, they go to kidnap a rich family's teenage son, but they end up kidnapping the wrong kid, completely wrong kid, unrelated. That's a pretty cool premise, in terms of having things go wrong and ratcheting up tension, and I like that idea, but there's also just a lot more going on. Like, you have this crime syndicate group with all these Guyanese immigrants, new immigrants coming in, and some of them are trying to get out, and they're afraid of what's going on. Jarrell Jerome, who's been in it for a while, seems incredibly desperate and ruthless in that regard. That side, you have stuff going on with the kid they were trying to kidnap, and he's kind of like a wayward son to his rich parents, played by Danes and Oliphant. His grandfather, played by Dennis Quaid. There's just a lot of parts here. And on top of that, of course, you have Zazie Beetz, who's actually like a postal inspector, who's kind of stumbled upon this case in progress, the case that hasn't even completely developed yet in terms of all these crimes that are happening and will continue to happen. And I don't know. I don't know if the circle, as it were, is completed as a viewer, and I'm not that I'm doubting that it'll eventually all come together by episode 6 and it'll make sense as a multi-layered story. I just wasn't grabbed enough to necessarily want to continue, despite the fact that I think the cast is great and I think the show looks great. So yeah, in terms of that mystery noir vibe, I mean, it's always cool to be in present day New York. Love that. It looks awesome. But yeah, I'm not sure I'm going to continue with this one. But let me know, how are you feeling about Full Circle? Were you more enwrapped and grabbed by the first 2 episodes? Do you want to finish the series? Convince me. Maybe I'll change my mind. Let me know in the comments. And for more TV reviews, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. What's up? Welcome back to Nostalgia. Dave here with a review of What We Do in the Shadows, Season 5. Yes, our favorite Staten Island vampires are back once again on FX and on FX on Hulu. First two episodes dropped of Season 5. And we know Season 6 is on the way as well because it was renewed for 2 seasons last year. What We Do in the Shadows, one of the most reliable and just one of the best, comedy series we have these days, and I was quite disappointed that season 4 was overlooked by the Emmys just recently after the series previously getting some Emmy love from time to time. Despite all that, season 5, 2 more episodes of the series that we love, and man, there's not a whole lot to say that hasn't been said before, but again, the show is just really, really funny. Like, I just love the central conceit and premise of What We Do in the Shadows as a series. Very simply, vampires in the real world, vampires that don't understand human society and things of that nature. It's just really funny. There's so much meat on this bone. It continues to entertain and delight. And I think a big part of that is, of course, our core ensemble. These characters, these actors, these performances continue to shine. Everyone is just so finely tuned at this point. It's just a blast to be with everyone. And the show as a series continues to do really funny stuff, such as like giving you more like vampire lore, calling back to stuff in past seasons, and just continuing to think of funny premises. I think the end of season 4 into the beginning of season 5 presents a bit of a big change in terms of plot. It's not a show that's heavy on plot, but Guillermo being bitten by his friend Derek and becoming a vampire because Nandor, Guillermo's master, never would do it for him and make him a vampire. That's a big change, right? And now we quickly learn from Laszlo that it's a big like insult and slight to have a familiar go behind his master's back and have someone else make him a vampire. And now Guillermo has to keep that a secret from Nandor and find a way to perhaps trick Nandor into thinking he did it and whatnot. Laszlo figuring this out in episode 2. Like, that is, I think, a great like central conflict to have. Of course, Guillermo kind of has that audience avatar throughout the series to this point, but I'm just kind of really in on that. And then, from there, I think there's a lot of just funny stuff we got through these first 2 episodes. Like the very quick moment of them talking about hypnosis and Nandor going into a public basketball game and hypnotizing a whole crowd. Really funny thought. Nandor having really like crazy descriptions for the different sounds and settings of a white noise machine, I thought was really funny. Colin Robinson going back into the workforce and being a waiter, being in the service industry, great idea, love it. Of course, Colin Robinson, Mark Proch, like back to full size, of course. Baby Colin, though, was a great idea, from last season, loved it. We got to see the Baron and the Sire in episode 2, love the callback, that was fun. And just like kind of going out with their neighbor Sean, him and Laszlo being, I think kind of hilarious friends, and just the dynamic of these kind of like dim-witted Staten Island normal dudes contrast with spending time with Laszlo and Nandor, these centuries-old vampires who don't know what the hell they're talking about half the time. That was really fun. Then they kind of go on like a GTA spree with taking their friend's police car and everything going too far, getting arrested. That was kind of a blast. I love how that resolves too after they get arrested, where all the police officers get hypnotized by Nandor, and Nandor is just kind of commanding the cops to like guard him. Like, I thought it was so funny watching Nandor with his standing outside or peeking out of the hatch of like a armored police vehicle and having this escort. Like, that like made me die. We know episode 3 is called Pride Night. I think that's ripe for a lot of humor as well with this series. Can't wait to see that. And yeah, I mean, there's not a whole lot more to say. Just really funny. It continues to know exactly what it is, but also find like new plot ideas to keep the show going. I like the guide as well as a character. It sounds like the guide's going to be a bigger part of the series and the ensemble, and I think that's fun. I always enjoy her energy with the group and with Nadja. So yeah, What We Do in the Shadows, 2 episodes down, another season in front of us, and another season next year as well, we assume. Really exciting. Shout out FX, shout out Hulu. But let me know how you're feeling about what we do in the Shadows season 5. What are you most excited to see in season 5 that maybe you haven't seen thus far from the comedy series we all love? And for more TV reviews, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. So, welcome back to Nostalgia. Dave here with my reaction to the 2023 Emmy nominations. We just got all the noms out today, and got to get into that. Gave my predictions a few weeks back, and for the most part, I would say it was not anything too surprising. Definitely some interesting things to note. But before we go into that, I think the most noteworthy thing about the 2023 Emmy nominations is that the Emmys probably aren't going to happen on September 18th due to the writer's strike. It sounds like if SAG strikes as well, if the actors strike as well, it's an absolute definite that this would get pushed. From what we understand, the Television Academy wants the Emmys to happen in November instead, if possible, whereas the network Fox wants them in January, which would be kind of interesting, kind of in sync with the Globes and Oscars season in general. That'd be kind of interesting, honestly. But I think more to come on that. But we have the noms out, and we'll just get into those. Unsurprisingly, the leader this year, once again, HBO, 127 nominations. Second place, no surprise, once again, Netflix with 103. And then rounding it out, you have Apple with 46, Hulu with 42, Amazon with 42, and Disney with 40. In terms of the most nominated shows, HBO dominating. Actually, 58% of their 127 nominations was their top 3 shows, these 3 juggernauts. Succession with 27, The Last of Us with 24, and The White Lotus with 23. Comedy was led by Ted Lasso at 21, Marvelous Mrs. Maisel with 14. Limited series, you had Beef and Dahmer with 13. With that, HBO having a big year once again, but getting Succession, The Last of Us, House of the Dragon, and The White Lotus all nominated in Best Drama Series. No network has ever had 4 series nominated for Best Drama in the same year since NBC back in 1992. Definitely a big flex on the part of HBO to just have hit after hit, both in terms of popular appeal and critical adulation. I've talked about all those shows, of course. Talked about most of these shows on the show. HBO had a banner, last Emmy year. That's obvious, But yeah, let's just kind of get into everything overall. So we'll start with drama. Start with the big dog here. So drama nominated, we have Succession, White Lotus, Last of Us, House of the Dragon for HBO, Better Call Saul, the second half of season 6, the final season, AMC, The Crown on Netflix, and Yellow Jackets on Showtime, and Andor on Disney+. Very happy to see House of the Dragon and Andor get in there. I wasn't sure exactly if House of the Dragon was going to kind of get left behind overall. Love that, and especially love the Andor love here. Yellow Jacket Season 2 is probably like the least inspiring one here, just because that's a show that had a fall off in Season 2 in terms of kind of everyone's opinion on the series. That meant no Yellowstone, no Mandalorian, no Boys, no Rings of Power. Amazon's definitely disappointed about that. No 1923. My pick here would have been Industry on HBO, but of course, with all the big blockbusters from HBO, they can't also have their smaller critical hits get in there too. So overall, can't really be too critical of that. Best Drama Actress, we have Sarah Snook with Succession, Melanie Linsky for The Yellow Jackets, Bella Ramsey, Last of Us, Elizabeth Moss for The Handmaid's Tale, and Kerry Russell for The Diplomat. I think kind of the boring one in there is Elizabeth Moss. Everyone's kind of off the Handmaid's Tale, wave at this point, not nominated for series this time around. Emma D'Arcy with House of the Dragon was here. Imelda Staunton for The Crown was here. I think that's kind of a weird pick, although I forgot, of course, the one big surprise in this category, which is Sharon Hogan for Bad Sisters on Apple. Did not see that one coming. But yeah, overall, pretty solid. Drama Actor, Jeremy Strong, Succession, Kieran Culkin, Brian Cox, Succession, Bob Odenkirk, Saul, Pedro Pascal, Last of Us, and Jeff Bridges, The Old Man. Pretty solid, pretty chalk. I would have loved to see Diego Luna get in here for Andor, or even Anthony Starr for The Boys, but pretty good. Drama Supporting Actor, you have Matthew McFadyen, Nicholas Braun, Alan Ruck, and Alexander Skarsgård for Succession. Really nice to see Alan Ruck get in there because it was the best Connor Roy season. Love that. F. Murray Abraham, Michael Imperioli, Theo James, and Will Sharp rounded out for The White Lotus. So this was just dominated. This is just Succession, White Lotus, this category. You know, one of the big things going into the Emmys, which I talked about when I did my nomination predictions, is that the way they changed voting, where it was a set amount of nominees versus previously it was a vote for as many people as you think are deserving type prompt, this would get more shows nominated and prevent big cast dominations. But alas, we still got that with HBO, fucking running shit up with all their significant actors with White Lotus and Succession. I don't know. I guess it is what it is. But I would have liked a little bit of diversity in the category, especially F. Murray Abraham under some fire for his personal antics lately. Don't know if we necessarily need that one there. Will Sharp on White Lotus as well probably doesn't stack up to me with like Theo James or Imperioli. Matt Smith, House of the Dragons, right there. But I mean, overall, pretty solid. Happy for Skarsgård as well with Succession. Just a great performance. Okay, that's drama. And you know what? Why don't we just get into guest actor for drama as well? Just because it's just so goddamn loaded this year. You have F. Murray Abraham and Nick Offerman for The Last of Us. That one episode, so spectacular. And then you have Lamar Johnson and Kevin Woodard as well for The Last of Us from a different episode. I did not expect that. I did not see that one coming. Just kind of speaks to the strength of The Last of Us in this category here. You also have James Cromwell and Arian Moayed with Succession. I guess my one disappointment here with Last of Us getting 4 guest actor nominations, the other 2 going to Succession. I would have loved like Andy Serkis to get one of these for Andor. I love him as a Kilo, I believe is the name. Kino. So good. Again, you would like to see the wealth spread at least a little bit, especially with a category like as small as guest actor. Then guest actress, you have for drama, you have Hewart Abbas and Cherry Jones from Succession, Harriet Walter from Succession, and then Melanie Linsky, Anna Torv, and Storm Reed for Last of Us. Literally the same exact thing. Guest actor, guest actress, just dominated by 2 shows. Can't really quibble with any of those picks, but I would like a little bit more diversity in the shows represented. Alas, that's drama. Going into comedy series, we have Ted Lasso, Abbott Elementary, The Bear, Season 1, not Season 2, which just came out, Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, Only Murders in the Building, Barry, Wednesday, and the surprise would be Jury Duty on Amazon Freevee. Pretty solid, pretty good. The one big snub to me is What We Do in the Shadows, not getting in after getting in before. And also, I guess, a bit of a surprise, Poker Face on Peacock, not getting through. A bit disappointing. Also, the Atlanta final season, Atlanta Season 4 did not make it in. Reservation Dogs Season 2 did not make it in. Shrinking as well for Apple. Could have definitely been in the mix here, did not get through. But that's the comedy series. Now going to the comedy actress, I think this one's pretty chalk. Keita Brunson, Abbott, Rachel Brosnahan, Maisel, Jenna Ortega, Wednesday, and Natasha Lyonne, Poker Face. At least Poker Face gets recognized by the central performance from Natasha. That's something. That's great. The 5th one, though, is Christina Applegate, Dead to Me, which is, I think, pretty solid. I think like the last pick here was kind of thin. Elle Fanning for The Great, Selena Gomez, Only Murders. I don't know. Christina Applegate, fine pick. Comedy actor, love this category. You have Jeremy Allen White for The Bear, Jason Sudeikis for Ted Lasso, Bill Hader for Barry. Those last 2, of course, have won this before. Martin Short for Only Murders, Jason Segel for Shrinking. That means Steve Martin did not get nominated alongside Short this time around. Donald Glover not in for Atlanta, and none of the What We Do in the Shadows cast able to break through this time. Overall, pretty solid, pretty stacked, and that is going to Jeremy Allen White. We know that. And I'll be doing my full predictions. Once the Emmys are actually happening, we have that date, I'll do them around then. Comedy supporting actress, we have Janelle James and Cheryl Lee Ralph from Abbott, Juno Temple and Hannah Waddingham from Ted Lasso, Alex Borstein for Marvel's Mrs. Maisel, Jessica Williams from Shrinking, probably the big surprise here, and then Ivy DeBerry, of course, for The Bear, which means Sarah Goldberg did not get through with Barry. Overall, pretty chalk, though. Comedy supporting actor Tyler James Williams for Abbott, Henry Winkler and Anthony Carrigan for Barry, Ebamos Baccarat for The Bear. Really happy that he's in there too. I was worried that maybe he would not make it in alongside his co-stars. Then Brett Goldstein and Phil Dunster for Lasso. Phil Dunster plays Jamie Tart. In the past, Ted Lasso got like a ton of nominations, right? No Brendan Hunt this time around, no Nick Mohammed this time around, but still gets 2 nominations. No Harrison Ford for Shrinking, no Tony Shalhoub for Maisel, but overall, pretty good once again. That's comedy. And then limited series, which if you watched my predictions, you knew that I said this was a bit of a crapshoot. I think overall it's a thinner year for limited series than it usually is in our peak TV times that we've come accustomed to. So this was ripe for a lot of surprise, and I think we got it overall. Limited series nomination for series, you have Monster, the Jeffrey Dahmer story, Beef, both Netflix, Daisy Jones and the Six for Amazon, Fleischman in Trouble for FX and Hulu, and the big surprise here, Obi-Wan Kenobi on Disney+. If you had told me before Obi-Wan came out that, a year later Obi-Wan would have gotten a limited series nomination, I would have been through the roof, through the moon, through the roof. I was so excited. Now, if you then followed it up with Obi-Wan got nominated and you actually wish it didn't happen, I would have been shocked. I found plenty of things to like about Obi-Wan, but it's not a show that's good enough to get limited series nomination. That's a bit perplexing to me, especially because it didn't get recognized anywhere else. That means that I think probably the favorite for that spot was Blackbird on Apple, which did not get a series nomination. Other stuff in the mix that didn't get through here: George and Tammy, The English on Amazon, Mrs. Davis, Swarm on Prime. Yeah, kind of, but overall, like none of those are like true heavy hitters. I mean, people like Monster. I love Beef. That's my pick for all these categories here, but it's definitely a thinner limited series year. Limited actress, we have Jessica Chastain for George and Tammy, Riley Keough for Daisy Jones and the Six, Dominique Fishback for Swarm. Really happy to see that. She was definitely the most celebrated aspect of Swarm. Catherine Hahn for Tiny Beautiful Things on Hulu. That was a surprise to me for sure. Lizzie Kaplan for Fleischman in Trouble. And then my pick, of course, Ali Wong for Beef. That means no Emily Blunt for The English, no Elizabeth Olsen for Love and Death, no Rachel Weisz for Dead Ringers. But overall, that's actually a pretty great crop of actresses. Limited actor, we have Evan Peters for Monster, Taron Egerton for Blackbird, Stephen Yeun for Beef, my pick, Michael Shannon for George and Tammy, Daniel Radcliffe for Weird, the Al Yankovic story, the Roku Weird Al series, and or limited movie. And then the surprise, I guess, here would be Kumail Nanjiani on Hulu for Welcome to Chippendales. Did not see that one coming. That one's a surprise. Meaning no Jesse Eisenberg for Fleischman, probably the biggest surprise here. Limited supporting actress, we have Niecy Nash for Monster, Claire Danes for Fleischman, Maria Bello for Beef, and who am I forgetting here? Camilla Morone for Daisy Jones and the Six. I think that one's a bit of a surprise. Juliette Lewis for Welcome to Chippendales. Pretty good one. And then also Merritt Weaver for Tiny Beautiful Things. So I think some surprises there for sure. I would have loved to see Ashley Park get through for Beef over Maria Bello personally. Last didn't happen. Olivia Colman did not get through for Great Expectations. Thought that might have been in the mix. Don't really know who the favorite is with that category, to be honest. I guess Claire Danes. I'm not really sure. Limited supporting actor, you have Paul Walter Hauser for Blackbird, Richard Jenkins for Monster, Ray Liotta for Blackbird, and a posthumous nomination. Nice to see. And then I think the last ones, again, are a bit of a surprise. Marie Bartlett for Welcome to Chippendales, Jesse Plemons for Love and Death, and then actually really happy about these. You have Joseph Lee and Young Mazzino for Beef, both of them getting through. That's Ali Wong's husband, the actor played him, and then Stephen Yeun's brother, the actor played him. Really nice to see both those get through. Donald Gleason doesn't get in for The Patient, but overall, I don't know. I think that category was really all over the place, so I can't complain. But yeah, that's limited. So I think overall, kind of like how it's been the last few years, the Emmys are largely more or less doing a good job with nominating. I think our one quibble remains that we'd like the heavy hitters to probably get less total nominations so that other shows can get some and just get in that mix just for that recognition. That's kind of the ongoing nod here. I mean, the Emmys, of course, struggle to have a relevance, I think, in terms of people paying attention to them because the TV calendar is non-traditional. At this point, the Emmys coming out in September, right before the fall television season starts. That used to make sense when we were in a broadcast and cable TV world, and we still obviously are, but with streaming shows coming out whenever they want to, and really most of the shows coming out into the spring to make the Emmy cutoff deadline, maybe it's not the worst thing in the world to have the Emmys come out in January and almost kind of kickstart our award season. I mean, the Golden Globes and the zombie version that they are becoming with the Hollywood Foreign Press no longer at the helm. We could just kill the Golden Globes and have and because they recognize television too, we could just kill the Golden Globes and have the Emmys kick it off. Of course, that's one less movie night, but I don't know, maybe killing the Globes is the SAG Awards gain. I don't know. But I think for the benefit of the Emmys, maybe being closer to the rest of awards season could be a benefit. I don't know. I'm kind of rooting for that to be the outcome just to see how it goes. I think happening in November isn't that big a difference from September, but we'll see. Definitely sounds like it's getting delayed off of September 18th with the current date. So we'll see. Once we actually have that date, I'll be doing a prediction in the lead up to that when we're closer to that date. But let me know, how did you feel about the 2023 Emmy nominations? Was there anything you really wanted to see that didn't happen? Anything that you're very happy you did see get nominated? And for more award predictions and TV reviews, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. What's up? Welcome back to Nostalgia. Dave here with a review of Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. Yes, Mission Impossible 7 is here. Our cinema king, Tom Cruise, back to save the box office once again. And unsurprisingly, this movie is awesome. It's so damn good. I had an absolute blast, and it's just really great. I'm going to spoil everything, of course, but man, Mission Impossible is just our best action franchise. That's just the facts. Really, ever since 2011, with Ghost Protocol, and especially the last 3 movies now directed by Chris McQuarrie, Rogue Nation, Fallout back in 2018, and now Dead Reckoning. It's been a long way between Fallout to now. We made it. And this series is just absolutely chugging on all cylinders. It's so awesome. Just the use of practical effects to make absolutely riveting, thrilling set pieces. You're just not getting this level of filmmaking anywhere else from the blockbuster franchise IP space. It's not even close. And I'm going to do a direct comparison to a long-running action franchise that released a movie earlier this summer that got its clock absolutely cleaned with a similar set piece done by Mission Impossible, later in the summer. Hilarious thing about, honestly. But yeah, really great. I would say off the bat, it's probably not as tight as Mission Impossible Fallout from 2018. That is probably arguably the pinnacle of action filmmaking. That is a 5 out of 5. Adrenaline the entire time. Amazing. Dead Reckoning Part 1 is probably not to the Fallout level, but it's not that far behind. Much like Rogue Nation, it's close. I think that just speaks to what Cruise and McQuarrie are trying to do, and they are succeeding. They are wowing, they are entertaining, they are thrilling, and they are doing stuff no one else has the courage to do, the technical means to do, whatever it might be. They continue to win. I'm really rooting for this film to have a strong box office. We're hoping the Top Gun Maverick success last year will provide a halo effect, of course, with Tom Cruise being in both movies. We will see. Interestingly, Dead Reckoning Part 1 technically released on Wednesday, but really released on Tuesday with showings all day and had even preview showings on Monday. Releasing earlier in the week for a 5-day weekend, if you will, as a means to maximize the use of IMAX screens and other premium format screens before Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer comes out, which has a locked-in 3-week exclusive hold on those premium screens. So that's what explains the early launch, and honestly smart, I think, to, Nolan is a force. You can't really beat him on something like that. He seemed to have his bases covered. So why not open Mission Impossible a little bit early to give people more time to see it on the best screen possible? And I saw this in IMAX, and it was absolutely worth it. Yeah. So let's get into it. Let's just get into it. Obviously, spoilers. I think it's a franchise that it's not like there's like a whole lot of like plot points to spoil. In fact, I think it's really funny how Mission Impossible treats plot. Story itself is kind of yada yada at times, but it's done in such, I think, an economical and efficient way that it's like you don't mind that the the who's and the what's sometimes are a little unclear. It doesn't matter because these movies just flow and move with such a rhythm, such a finesse, despite how big and large and grand they are. That I think that's okay. So it's not like it's like huge plot points to spoil, but of course there are things to spoil. So let's get into that. Yeah, I think right off the bat, let's just decide where to go here. We have three like really prime set pieces here, kind of anchor Act 1, Act 2, and Act 3 in the film. The first big set piece is, and actually I'll back it up before we get into set pieces. I think what's really cool about the antagonist, the villain of Dead Reckoning Part 1, is actually how hilariously prescient it is. Dead Reckoning Part 1 was supposed to come out in the past. This is movies that the budget ballooned because it had so many COVID starts and stops with its production that it took a while for this movie to come out. Here it is. And our villain is AI. Artificial intelligence is the bad guy. It's certainly not a new villain when it comes to movies. Look no further than, of course, Terminator 2, most famously. But given the AI year we have in 2023, and I think it's very widely accepted that the 2020s will be the decade of artificial intelligence and the growth and explosion of generative AI in our lives, it's pretty awesome that Mission Impossible right at this moment is giving you a movie about AI. I think it's done pretty intelligently. Not dissimilar to like a Skynet. Very much our villain here is the entity this time. It's just this incredibly smart AI that has the power to obviously infiltrate anything and everything digitally, but notably hasn't actually made its move on like what this AI wants to achieve since going rogue, if you will. And that'll be seemingly revealed in Dead Reckoning Part 2, which currently is dated for 2024. We'll see if that date holds, especially with the writer's strike and whatnot. But that's our villain, and I think it's actually incredibly effective. Having Ethan and Luther and Benji having the game have to try and attempt to outsmart, as Benji or as Luther puts it, play 4D chess with an algorithm. It thinks it knows what Ethan Hunt will do before Ethan Hunt does it. That's compelling. And I think it's like really nicely tied to the fact that Ethan Hunt as a character is always someone who can make that impossible choice, but also really cares about the people close to him, right? And like that can be perceived as a weakness, right? Think about his estranged wife played by Michelle Monaghan in like the earlier movies that was wrapped up in Fallout, but that I think core conceit, like it's probably one of the core tenets of what Ethan Hunt is as a character, right? The AI as a bad guy is actually kind of able to play off that because it can predict how Ethan will react when the people close to him are in peril. To me, I found that compelling. So yeah, let's get set up in these set pieces, and we right before the first one, we have I think a really great introduction to awesome callback. You have Henry Czerny back as Eugene Kittredge, now the head of the CIA, I believe. Kittredge, of course, has not been in the Mission Impossible franchise since the very first movie back in '96, and it's cool to see Kittredge back in like basically a new role. You don't actually have to know anything about Kittredge if you haven't seen the movie or don't remember. I actually don't really remember much about Kittredge in the beginning, but it's cool to see him back. And I think there's a fun scene where you have Kittredge as well as Indira Varma and Charles Parnell, some other characters, all various government figures. You have them kind of explaining what the entity is as as a villain, like what it can do. It's like a lot of exposition, but it's actually like fun exposition because you're not exactly sure what's going to happen. You expect something bad to happen, and like I actually found it really engaging because I thought something bad would happen, and then it's revealed that no, it's actually Ethan in a classic Mission Impossible mask disguise as his way to neutralize everyone with like a gas bomb, not killing them, but neutralize them, so we can talk to Kittredge face to face, without any uh, tracing from the AI and whatnot. Of course, Carrie Elways, his national intelligence director character, is a big piece of that meeting as well. He gets gassed, and then from there, it's kind of a race against the clock right away, where our MacGuffin is these two keys, these keys that form into one another to make this like singular skeleton key, if you will, to unlock something with the entity. It's not really clear what that's supposed to be in the beginning. It doesn't seem like the characters know exactly what the key does. And it's kind of said that it's the source code. I don't know. I found like that one aspect a bit like confusing or like unnecessarily stressed upon, where it's like we don't actually know what the key unlocks. Like, I guess like because we have that prologue scene where we learn about the origins of the entity, and we know that it's actually located at like the bottom of the Bering Sea in a destroyed Russian submarine. We already know all that, but none of the characters seem to know that the key would be directly related to the entity. I don't know. That piece is a little confusing. Doesn't matter. Doesn't detract from the movie at all, because we very quickly go to set piece one, which is in the Abu Dhabi airport. Apparently, this was filmed with hundreds of extras right before his airport opened. Just, I think, a huge flex from McQuarrie. There's a huge logistical accomplishment to, I think, have this really amazing kind of chase scene. You have Shea Wiggum, his character, and also his comrade, his compatriot, played by Greg Tarzan Davis. They are these two characters under Kittredge, kind of serving Kittredge, trying to take him in on behalf of the U.S. government. And they are like them and their subordinates are trying to chase Hunt down, while Hunt is attempting to locate the key. And trying to find the key, find both pieces of the key, who has the key, who's trying to sell the key to somebody else, trying to figure out things via the key. It actually is a pretty effective MacGuffin trying to propelling the plot, because no one actually knows what the audience knows about the key. And that, I think, the Abu Dhabi chase is really fun, and it's our introduction to a new character, Grace, played by Haley Atwell, this kind of like thief, sleight of hand, burglar type character who has been contracted, we find out, to get the key, and her and Ethan come into contact together, and that's our setup into Grace as a character. And Mission Impossible is so fun as a jet setting franchise. And they do it actually in the locations. It goes such a long way to actually shoot stuff in the cool places that you're purportedly visiting. So quickly from the Abu Dhabi chase, which I think is legitimately thrilling, you have this whole other subplot to it where Benji's trying to take out and deactivate a nuke that's in baggage claim. Like, it's a really riveting piece. And very quickly, we go from Abu Dhabi to where everyone was flying to, and we go to Rome. And in Rome is where we get, I think it's an all-timer. I think this is an all-time Mission Impossible sequence. We have a car chase scene, where Ethan and Grace are handcuffed to one another. And it's like the dominant hands, so they basically take turns, but they are driving a car through the streets of Rome while handcuffed to one another. So it's like one-handed across, and again, a logistical flex to do this on the actual streets of Rome, Italy. And eventually they go into a little Fiat 500, whip the fuck out of that thing. It's awesome. This is a really extended sequence, but I mean, I think that sequence alone is like worth the price of admission. To see it a second time. I want to see the sequence again. I think that was like spectacular stuff. And you have Shea Wiggum and crew chasing Ethan and Grace. You also have separately an antagonist we don't really know yet. This kind of heavy character played by Palm Clemente. People, of course, would know Palm as Mantis from the Guardians of the Galaxy movies with Marvel. Palm seems to be having the time of her life as this like homicidal assassin character. Great stuff. We eventually learn, of course, that Palm is in the service of Gabriel, and Gabriel is in fact like basically the human expression of the entity as a villain. He's someone working for the entity. The entity actually hides him, and he hides him from the internet. Like there's no digital trace of this guy anywhere in the world, and he's probably the weakest aspect of the movie. Gabriel, just as a villain, as a manifestation of the entity, who purportedly has a past with Ethan, like early past, like crossing Ethan. None of that's fleshed out enough to really make him have like weight as a villain. I think in general, like Mission Impossible is not a franchise that had like dynamite bad guys. You know, probably the best villain in the franchise is Philip Seymour Hoffman in Mission Impossible 3. You know, rest in peace. And as a heavy, you know, Henry Cavill was great in Fallout, but like it's a bit of a weak spot. And I actually kind of like that the real bad guy is actually artificial intelligence itself, because like I think that kind of bigger picture thing makes sense as something truly going head to head with someone like Ethan Hunt, someone like Tom Cruise, you know. So Gabriel's kind of just like caught in between, where like he's like good enough to do what he has to do, played by Asa Morales, I should say. But to me he was a bit of a weak spot. You know, from Rome, we get probably like the one slower section in the movie where we're in Venice, you know, not far away in Venice, which again, just an amazing movie location, as people know. And you know, more things happen, especially with Gabriel, and this is where we re-encounter Vanessa Kirby's character from Fallout, the you know, the arms dealer broker type person, and you know, a bunch of stuff happens. And I should have said before, Rebecca Ferguson has come back into the mix, reunited with Luther and Benji and Ethan. You know, her character Ilsa is in the very beginning of the movie, presumed dead, not in fact dead. Rebecca Ferguson, one of our great like action actors at this point. You know, you have her in the last now 3 Mission movies. You have her in Dune, killing it on Silo, on Apple. Great actor. And this kind of all leads up to, I think, a really great example of like the AI fucking with you and the AI being a bad guy, where like the AI gets what it wants and predicts what will happen, and it kind of leads to Ilsa and Gabriel having like a sword fight on a bridge in Venice, a bridge over one of the canals, and like it's like a really fun build up as like Ethan's trying to get there in time before bad things happen, but of course he can't because the AI is gonna win, and Ilsa is killed. Rebecca Ferguson is taken out. Definitely a big hit for the franchise, for Ethan, but it's not lost to me that Haley Atwell conveniently has been added to the franchise. So Rebecca Ferguson, bells for her. Great run on the franchise as Ilsa. I think Ilsa goes out in like a pretty badass way too. And I should say too, like I really should stress, like Haley Atwell as Grace is freaking fantastic in this movie, start to finish. She's in a lot of it. Probably this, you would say she's the second lead. And you know, Haley Atwell, she's in her 40s, taken her a long time to get this role. People have obviously pegged her for stuff for a long time due to her, you know, small role in Marvel as Agent Carter. And I think people have really rooted for Haley Atwell and wanted her to do something big. She got her chance and she absolutely crushed it, man. She aced this test. I'm so happy for her. I think she's like really great as Grace, and like her and I think Cruz have great chemistry. And a big piece of that is actually kind of like physical acting, physical comedy, gesturing, and facial expressions. Like it's not just all line readings too, but she's also incredibly credible as like an action star and like doing the stunts and things of that nature. So even though it's tough to lose Rebecca Ferguson, given how great she is, the fact that we now have Haley Atwell in the franchise for this final run here, pretty exciting. Yeah, and she's just kind of fun too, like having like being a burglar character, has all this sleight of hand, picking pockets, getting the key from people and things like that. Just a lot of fun. And basically our final set piece here, you know, in Act 3 would be this extended train sequence, not just any train, of course, but that would be the Orient Express going through Europe. And uh, obviously, trains are not new to Mission Impossible. There's a nice, I think, callback to Mission Impossible 1, where you have Gabriel and Ethan on top of the train having to like drop down low as the train goes through a tunnel. Definitely familiar to Mission fans there. But this sequence is really awesome. I think a lot of the classic Mission tropes, right? Taking people out, assuming identities, using the masks. It's fun. And like, I think just in general, like a fast-paced train, a runaway train. That's just a great like movie piece and movie prop to do to propel action and like raise the stakes. And in that you get like this really jaw-dropping scene where you have Ethan drive a dirt bike off the top of a mountain to launch himself away from the cliff face, so then he can then engage his parachute and use that to fly onto the train that he had missed. And even if that action set piece is digitally enhanced in certain ways, Tom Cruise still did a significant amount of that stunt, and just kind of speaks to how much of a madman he is for the sake of cinema, for the sake of our entertainment. Like, the guy is, what is it, 60-40, 50-50 that he will die on set one day, because again, he's in his 60s already. Obviously, I'm not rooting for that, but man, the guy goes for it. And the way actually that like comes through, where he crashes through the window with the chute at the perfect time, amazing stuff. And then of course the sequence kind of ends with like a pseudo like Uncharted nod, where the train's like falling off a blasted bridge and it's all vertical, and Grace and Ethan have to get through and whatnot. That I think all the action is like just so riveting. Like I said, I think my one negative would just be Gabriel as a presence in and of himself is a bit weak. He'll be in Dead Reckoning Part 2, of course, but didn't love him. But I do kind of like AI as an overarching bad guy when it's done well. Grace Haley Atwell is an amazing addition. Pom Klementieff as well, who now seemingly has become good by the end of this movie. Brought into the IMF, it seems. We know she will be in the next one that's been announced. I would like to see more from her as a character. Like, she clearly was good in the action moments, but it is a bit of like that silent Asian assassin trope that we get from time to time, unfortunately, in this sense that Pom's character doesn't really speak a whole lot. So I'm hoping that the character gets a bit fleshed out as part of the ensemble in the next one, because I thought she definitely brought it with the action chops. And Shea Wiggum, amazing hair. Guy looks great. He's good in everything he's in. And he's been killing it in supporting roles forever at this point. He's great. Looking forward to seeing more of him. Yeah, man. I think just I was kind of in a daze walking out of the theater. I thought it was just an absolute blast, and I think Dead Reckoning Part 1 is fun because it also brings back a lot of the series' spy roots. It's not a pure action franchise, even though it has amazing action in it. There's a lot of fun, like, traditional Mission Impossible stuff going on in this movie, which I think really rounds it out as an entry in the franchise. And just to speak to what I teased before, the Rome set piece, which again to me is the highlight of the movie, the Rome set piece is so tactical, so riveting, extended, but also really transportative because they actually did it in Rome and they're doing it in real cars and whatnot, right? It's absolutely hilarious that Fast and Furious 10, did a Rome chase sequence with cars 2 months ago. And it is so clearly inferior to what Mission Impossible did, because Fast didn't actually go to Rome to make that. It's clearly digitally enhanced. It's clearly just drone shots telling you you're in Rome, even though you're not actually in Rome. Like, of course, Mission Impossible digitally enhances things too, but when you actually do it in the place, it goes so much further. And also, you just have more advanced, more proficient, more skilled action choreographers with the Mission franchise. Like, it's kind of a night and day thing to me. And I even like that part of Fast X. I thought it was fun. But Mission just shows you just how much better you can do it. And to me, that's just kind of hilarious timing. And Fast X is down bad with that, Fast X grossed $700 million. I think Mission Impossible would love to gross that much as well. So we'll see who is laughing with the business angle at the end. Mission Impossible Fallout did pass that total as the highest grossing movie in the franchise. We're hoping Dead Reckoning can keep that momentum going. But yeah, man, it's one of the best Mission Impossible movies, one of the best action movies you're gonna get in any year. Like, you really can't do much better than this. And yeah, Tom Cruise, he is our cinema king. Love him or hate him. Plenty of people love him, plenty of people hate him. You can't knock the fact that the man works and he delivers. So I love Dead Reckoning Part 1. Let me know, though, how did you feel about Mission Impossible 7? How did you compare it to some of the recent entries? What was your favorite part about it? What are you most excited about to see in Dead Reckoning Part 2? And for more movie reviews, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. All right, that's going to do it for this week's pod. Next week, we made it, everyone. Barbenheimer is here to save our lives, to save the summer. Oppenheimer from Christopher Nolan and Barbie. You know it. I know it. Gonna talk about both. Also, of course, New Jeans, second EP, the hottest thing in K-pop. Gotta do it. Greta Van Vliet's dropping a new album. I always enjoy making fun of them for sounding just like Led Zeppelin, so I'll probably end up doing that again. Spoiler alert. And yeah, make sure you subscribe, youtube.com/nostalgiapod, linktree.com/nostalgiapod. See the links below. Get the best of 2023 Spotify playlist for the best songs of the year. Let me know what's good, and I'll see you next week.